All right, Mr. Avi. So, how long have you been in the real estate business, and how long have you been with REISift?
I've been in the real estate business for probably about 6 years now. I started a business 9 years ago that was not exactly in real estate. It was more like lead generation,
Sure.
and then morphed into lead generation for investors. And then I decided to become my own investor and not do lead generation anymore. So that
Got
was
it.
the backdrop. And then so 6 years in investing, I would say I know exactly when I actually began using Sift. I signed up for it long before I actually used it, but it was like August or September of 2021,
Got you.
I want to say. So yeah, a
Okay.
little over 2 years ago.
Okay.
I probably signed up for it though. I would guess sometime in early to mid 2020.
Okay.
Uh,
So for you, that looked and kind of felt like you were in the business, but you kind of had this urge to maybe have your own. Is that the right understanding?
exactly.
Okay.
Yes. So what I at the time, and I don't do this anymore. At the time, I was doing um, lead generation for nationwide Google pay-per-click
Sure.
advertising. So
Okay.
I was helping people get leads all over the country because
Okay.
I kind of figured out, okay, there was a cheaper way to get
Okay.
leads. Doesn't matter if the seller is in, North Carolina or Alaska. If they're motivated, let's see if we can make a deal happen.
Okay.
And so I was working through a process with a few clients to do that. And then once I saw what was possible, I was like, "Oh, actually, I want to try it. I want to try investing myself."
Okay.
And so I got into wholesaling first, and then shifted into what I'm doing now, which is owner
Okay.
financing.
Got you. Got you. Okay. So since you've been an investor, what has the transition felt like for you as you've gotten more adopted into REISift? Like, what is your real estate business as an investor look and feel like now?
Okay, so right now I don't do a lot of volume. I just focus on just if I can find a really good deal, that's where I'm interested. So
Sure.
I'll do if I can do 10 to 12 to maybe 15 deals a year, I'm very happy.
Okay.
And each deal is a much bigger spread than it used to be. So for
Gotcha.
context, when I was wholesaling, I would do deals in the 8 to 10 to maybe 12,000 range on
Sure.
average. And if I was good, I'd get maybe 14, 15, 20,000 would be great. I probably had a couple in the 20 plus thousand range.
Sure.
Then once I realized, well, I had enough people tell me that I'm basically I can make a lot more money if I just buy the property and
Right.
figure out the exit strategy from there. Um, so instead of selling at a wholesale price, I still buy at wholesale prices, but I'm not selling at wholesale prices anymore. I sell at full market value. Um, and so my spreads are closer to 100,000, 110,000, 80. I mean, I will do deals that are less than 100. I don't want to sound like too
Beautiful.
picky about that,
Right.
but I'm not as interested if it's less than 50 or 60,000.
Cool. What was one of your biggest deals of 2023, if you don't mind me asking?
20, well, probably I bought a property. It was a piece of land, 1.92 acres for 33,000 all in, and sold it for 230 with 30,000 down on a 5-year note. Interest only. I typically don't do interest only, but
Sure.
so that deal right there is 197,000 before interest. So it'll
Perfect.
it'll end up being well over 200.
Yeah, that's a good day. That's a good day for
That's
sure.
a good one. That was a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was it that made you what put REI Sift on your radar? What made you decide, hey, I'm gonna try this out? I know you said you got it, but maybe there was some time between. But go back to that
Yeah.
feeling of like, maybe I should buy this. What was it?
Okay. So I have to think back through why I originally was interested. I know Tyler put a lot of content out, and I was like, all right, this guy
Right.
makes a lot of sense. Let me look into it. And I signed up for an account, and at the time, it just didn't line up with my timing of what I was doing in my business
Okay.
because all of my leads, I don't want to say the majority, I probably almost half, I would say, of my portfolio came from Google pay per click.
Okay.
So I was getting Google leads. I was doing them more locally. I wasn't doing nationwide anymore, but I was doing them locally here in the North Carolina market.
Okay.
Charlotte is where I live. So I was getting a lot of leads from Google, and that was my bread and butter. Like everything was focused on when's the next lead coming in, and so I was actually getting a little bit frustrated with that being my reality. Is I always
Sure.
had to just wait for the leads to come in. And I didn't like that I didn't have a ton of control over my business.
Okay.
So it was like, okay, I could get a lead today, I could get 3 leads today, or I could go 4 days without any leads at all. And so that's
Mhm.
very hard to manage your projections on.
Okay.
Um, so I had looked into, obviously I'd looked into REISift, I'd looked into a couple other techniques on how to get outbound leads. Um, so when it came to around August of 2021, what happened was the cost per lead and the cost per deal to actually buy a property from Google was going up and up and up.
Okay.
So let's say it was anywhere in the 2,000 to 2,500 range. It was creeping up over 3,000, 3,500, and so it was like, all right, well, I'm spending all this money to get a deal, and it felt like a hamster wheel.
Right.
And at the same time, I had transitioned from wholesaling to more of a cash flow model where I do owner financing now. So I'll
Hmm.
buy a property and I'll sell it with owner financing. I basically create a spread, right? So
Right.
I'm focused on how much, first of all, how much equity is in the deal, and then how much monthly cash flow can I see from it.
Sure.
And and I was kind of in the beginning stages of building the portfolio, and basically all of my cash flow was going directly back into marketing. So I was like, well, there's got to be a better way to do this. And so I said, let me just shut everything off and see what I can do. Um, I was like, there's got to be a way to do it without spending money on advertising. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with a guy named Larry Higgins. He had developed a company called Skip Genie, which a lot of people use
Yep.
for skip tracing. So Larry put a lot of content out about uh, basically chasing deals that were delinquent in taxes and the owner had passed away. So deceased owner,
Right.
delinquent taxes. And I was like, that's interesting. And the more and more I listened to what his stories were, I was like, this doesn't sound that crazy. Like it's actually when you don't do something yourself, you're
Right.
like, oh, well, that sounds good for them, but I do something else. And the more he's just a very down to earth speaker, right?
Sure.
So I listened to and so is Tyler, by the way. I was kind of listening to all these voices and several other people I that I'm sure I could give a lot of credit to, which we won't get into that right now, but we can if we need to. And I was like, let me try this other approach. And within the first month, I remember it was September of 2021. I had a great deal. It was like an $80,000 profit, and I was like, okay, this works. And
Perfect.
so yeah, let me pause there. But that was like the transition. I was like, let me test it, see if I can do it, and it worked. It
Sure.
worked pretty quickly, and so it was off to the races. I never turned on Google again after that.
Right. Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah,
So this kind of segues pretty good into the next question, which would be, for you, it seemed like you were looking for the control, which we usually all are, right? And then
right.
we typically find RS Sift and we realize there is a pretty amazing control aspect that you can gain. But for you, has that been like the biggest benefit for you, or has there been something else, or is it like, yeah, definitely the control
No,
aspect?
that's a part of it. I would say the biggest benefit is to be able to dig into the details of deals that nobody else spends the time to do. And that's why the deals are profitable because it, I'll just give an example. Like if I'm going to go look at an estate file from 1979 and a delinquent tax property that's got multiple errors that nobody found because they didn't look at the estate file, they didn't go to Ancestry, and they didn't look at XYZ. Like I'm just every deal has its own
Sure.
set of challenges. Every hurdle that that I know I'm going to clear is another level up of profit in the deal because I know it wiped out several other people,
Right.
investors, whatever you want to call it. Several other people probably gave up at that point.
Sure.
Even some of my own best deals, I gave up myself, and then I'm like, you know what? Let me try that one again, or I'll talk to one other person, or I'll get one other idea. And so what REISift does is allows me to gather that intelligence every step of the way, so that I am never dumber. Like I'm never dumber than I was
Can't go
from the
back.
time I started. I'm
Yeah.
always a little bit smarter about that deal, and even if it's even if it's a wrong phone number, something as simple as that, like, oh well, that number doesn't work.
Right.
I've had some very good success with deals where I'm like, I tried every possible skip tracing angle you can imagine, from True People to Skip Genie to REISift to
Right.
uh, God knows what else. And then I end up like going to the property, calling a number across the street that had like a muffler and brake service, asking them to go put a message in the guy's mailbox, and then he calls me back the next day. This actually just happened. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm in the directory." He's like in the whatever the local yellow pages,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like I was looking at the wrong number because I was so focused on the well, oh, we're supposed to skip trace people.
Right.
Sometimes you just call somebody else nearby and they'll tell you how to reach them. And
Yeah.
so
Okay.
yeah, that level of intelligence gathering on each deal, I can see the dashboard of it helps me stay focused on the deal, and I keep all my stuff in the notes section.
Okay.
So I will spend months and sometimes years on one property because I know
Sure.
it's going to be a deal eventually if I can find somebody.
So it'll work out. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
So the that you mentioned on the dashboard. So what would be like your favorite feature? One that
Uh,
a lot of people say like Sift line and stuff, and that's okay. But what would be yours?
I don't even know. Yeah, I don't even know what Sift line is. I saw it on there, but I don't know what it is yet.
That's
Which
awesome.
maybe I could go check it out. But
Yeah.
my favorite feature is, um, I mean, just the basic stuff, like to be able to go and say, all right, what do I want to work on today? I can go filter it, literally sift it down to, all right, deceased owners, tax delinquent, this county, haven't touched them, or have touched them and couldn't find it. Like sometimes that I'll just kind of categorize, like, all right, let me
Right.
work on the ones that I touched, but I still have sort of not uncovered anybody, any human that I can talk to about it. So that feature of like picking where I'm going to set my target for that day.
Sure.
And I could be way more disciplined, I'm sure, but because there's days I don't even go look at Sift
Yeah.
at all.
It's all right. Yeah.
And I have some people that work with me that now are helping me with it, like joint venturing on deals and things like that, that
Yeah.
use it way more often than I do.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm sure they might have a different perspective as well.
Right. Okay. So then in your journey with REI Sift, I'm sure at some point there was some sort of pitfall for you where maybe an integration wasn't working or you're having trouble maybe setting something up or you're not sure why you're not getting set up with the calling platforms, whatever it may be. Is there a time that you can remember where you had to reach out to support? And in your opinion, how did it go?
It's actually usually been the other way around. Like they'll reach out to me. There's been many times where support will reach out to me and be like, "Hey, how's everything going? And what can we help with?" And I'm like, "Oh gosh, I feel like a slacker." I'm like, I don't know."
So it sounds like they reached out to you and you were like, wow, I don't really
Yeah,
have anything at the moment. So it's worked out good for you, which,
totally.
there was no right answer to that question. Some people naturally find more problems or, seek support in their own way. And it sounds like you maybe just figured it out or you had to
Yeah,
call the other
there's
parts of the
little
integrations.
things.
Sure.
Yeah, little things where I'll like upload a list. I'm like, how do I, just like the whatever you call it, where you have to match up the fields and all that. So little things where I'll hit a
Yeah.
roadblock and then yeah, either type in a ticket or figure it out.
Yeah.
But I know REI Sift is always available to help.
Right. Right.
I run into a snag for
And
sure, which
some
is
people
great.
too, they don't seem to even reach out to support. They're just like, I'm hopping on the Facebook page or the
Yeah, there you go.
mastermind community. So
Yeah, the
it's just whatever. Yeah.
Facebook page is incredibly helpful because it people that are going through the same crazy stuff that we're going through. Okay.
So we're here in Avi's account. This is his dashboard, and we're gonna have him give us a little quick tutorial on how he uses REI Sift, how he inputs data from start, and how he markets to them, how he filters them, whatever he does to close deals with Sift. He's gonna show us right now. So let's I'll have you take it away, man.
There's two there's basically two different sources of data that I look at.
Okay.
One is tax foreclosure, and the other one is deed of trust foreclosure.
Okay.
DOT, let's go DOT foreclosure.
Perfect.
Both of them I'm in North Carolina, and I do most of my transactions are in North Carolina. So both the tax foreclosure and the deed of trust foreclosure processes end in the
Mhm.
same basically they end in the same way with an auction. a foreclosure auction.
Okay.
And they're a little bit different though. It's like for the most part, the data is like the steps in the process is very similar. Those are supposed to be like sideways triangles, not
Yep.
crazy wavy lines, but
It's
I
all
think you'll
good.
get the point. So at the end of a tax foreclosure in North Carolina, there's an auction, and then there's a 10-day upset bid period. 10-day right here,
Mm-hmm.
and at the end of a deed of trust, or what we'd call a bank loan foreclosure, deed of trust foreclosure. In some states, it's called a mortgage foreclosure, but in North Carolina, it's a deed of trust foreclosure, and it's called a trustee sale.
Okay.
So, just for context, so both of them end with an auction. They're different kinds of auctions. This one, the tax foreclosure, is called a commissioner sale because the county, the one trying to collect the tax delinquency, is appointing a commissioner. It's usually an attorney, or it's always an attorney. And each county has a set commissioner or multiple commissioners if it's a big enough county. And so that's a commissioner sale. Deed of trust is a trustee sale because there's a trustee that's running the sale and the bank is appointing a trustee. Okay, so for anybody that already knows that, sorry for the repeat, but it's important because I look I look at a lot of courthouse data. So the courthouse data that I'm looking at starts as early as here at the very beginning of the process. Right here, I'm just going to do a little check mark and explain it instead of trying to like write on the screen.
Okay.
So right here, when we're way early in tax delinquency, I look at people that are at least 3 years tax delinquent. So in North Carolina, you can get foreclosed technically after 1 year of tax delinquency, after 1 day of being delinquent. But the county doesn't do that. They're not going to spend their time and resources, and they certainly don't want to be on the headline news trying to
Right.
foreclose on someone for being less than a year late.
Right.
So typically, there's not really a problem. Like if you could try to go call a bunch of people that are behind on their taxes by a couple of months or even 1 year, you're not. I don't want to say you. I personally have not had success doing that because they're they're not they're not motivated. They're like, yeah, I know about it. I mean, I've been late paying property taxes by weeks, if not months, sometimes. And it's like, okay, yeah, I forgot about that one. Let me go pay it. So
Right.
that you're going to run into a lot of that. So that's the filter from the get-go is courthouse data or county data, I should say, tax delinquent. Most counties that I look at have a spreadsheet or some kind of raw data file that I can see from the tax collector how many years they're delinquent on their property taxes. So I
Okay.
start with that raw data here. Deed of trust is a much smaller data set because I'm looking at a week by week basis. So
Sure.
so three actually, let me say it more properly. The earliest data set that I can look at on a deed of trust foreclosure is called an appointment of substitute trustee. So when the bank says, "Hey, this bank loan is delinquent, we're going to appoint a substitute trustee," and it's the first stage in the state statute that a lender is supposed to do or is allowed to do, I should say, is appoint a substitute trustee. I don't really look that early at those because it's a lot of you can have a lot of negative conversations with people. I try to go down here where there's a hearing,
Okay.
um, and so they're not at the sale yet, but they're close. And so between here and here, you've got people that got the warning, so the borrower is late on their loan, but they didn't really do anything, and they're not going to show up to the hearing, and so there's not really a lot of action. You can track that courthouse file. Um, so I'll go here on the taxes. The next step of the process, like the next level of urgency, is when the county has assigned the file to an attorney. So that commissioner. So that's sort of that next stage. And then you got your hearings, you've got your sale. The notice of sale comes right before the auction. That's usually like 20 days or more. So I'm basically tracking. The reason I wanted to show that I'm tracking all that data, and that is enough data to allow me to retire. Like it's plenty. I don't deal with a lot of data. I'm dealing with a few hundred files, and
Sure.
I will dig into those few hundred files for as long as I need to. So now if I share my whole screen, the REISift is not too exciting. I'll go in, I'll upload the file. So I'll clean up the county file that
Sure.
came from either the tax delinquency. So I might start with a few hundred tax delinquent files. I'll upload that. every week like I said, I'm working with some folks that are putting in files here on a week by week basis to look at the deed of trust foreclosures,
Okay.
and um, and so then we'll just run with it. So I'll go and say, okay, let me see what's uploaded.
Hmm.
Uh, so a brand new list might look like this, for example.
Okay, so for you, when you open your Sift account, you're looking for what was already added, and you're not necessarily the one adding it. Okay, I like that. Good.
I will sometimes, but there's
Right.
other people that people might add as well.
Okay.
So I will look at, let's see here, Mecklenburg County. Let's just look at this. This one's called 115 deceased and 325 alive. Okay.
Okay.
This is an old one, right, from several months ago. So I'm going to apply the filters, and this is how I will start a day. I'll say, okay, let's see how many people all in this file. There's 439. So I might say, can you see the opt out and the not
Yep.
interested
Yep.
and all that?
Yep.
So I might say, all right, let me look at only those that are deceased, because sometimes I get frustrated dealing with with living people, which sounds weird. Like people who are alive and tax delinquent are so frustrating to deal with in
Oh
general.
yeah. They've already
They
proven that they're going to be a pain in the butt.
right. So I'll say, okay, let me look at deceased. I think I have it as a tag. I know you guys have a way to do
Yep. There's
you
ways.
can yeah, you can do deceased, but I just tag them as deceased,
Perfect.
and then include deceased only. It should be 100. There we go, 121. And now I'm going to say, you know what? I'm not going to waste time right now, even though there may be a possibility of people that I've decided I'm not going to spend time with. I've clicked as opt out. So I'm going to just remove those. I'm going to remove some others. Let me just delete um, status. I think it's property status. Do not include opt out. Just as an example, and we can go,
So you're
way
filtering
down
by
deep.
all the people that you've decided I'm still willing to work with.
Yeah, I'm still want to work with all these people. So I'm like, all right, I've got 99 possible deals. Who can I find today?
And they're
Not
stacked
interested.
too.
I know. Yeah, they're stacked. Yep, they're deceased. They're tax delinquent. Um, so okay, here we go. Here's one that says follow up. I will typically mark follow up if and only if I have a some shred of a conversation. So I may go into the follow up and say, okay, what happened here? So I'll go in there. I'll check and see what my message board says. And my message board, okay, I don't have anything in this one for some reason, but I know that this person is supposed to be Jerry, unknown. I don't have any intelligence on the number. So I didn't, what this tells me off the bat is I didn't work very hard on
Right.
this lead. So I can dig way deeper. The ones I've worked hard on, I've got piles and piles of notes in there about, who's the heir, who's so and so. So I obviously got a lot of that was a bad number, so I
Mm-hmm.
probably started that before you guys had this tagging system.
Mm-hmm.
So I know I can go in here and say wrong number, and this one's a question mark. So there we go. I just got smarter on that deal because of REISift's capabilities. So I'll
Sure.
I'll pursue that stuff. Then if I get in touch with them, I'll mark it as where is it? Wherever the lead status is, I'll mark it a.
Okay.
Is that
Yeah.
changed?
Back on. It'll be back on the records page probably. Well, right now it says opt out.
Yeah. So wherever you change it, I would
Yep.
I would go
Yep.
in. I would change the status to prospecting. Oh, there it is.
There it
Sorry,
is.
that's a view.
We weren't
Um,
rolling up all the way. Okay. Cool.
yeah, let's say I got somebody, I would change it to prospecting. I do pretty much all of my deals in person. So I'm in person with the seller. And so if I got the deal contracted, I'll put it under contract. And then obviously if I buy the property, then it's in my portfolio. And that's kind of it. I don't know. I'm sure we can go into other stuff as well.
No, I mean it's very clear to me what your process is. I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me like you've learned a niche to its most detailed form. You figured
Yep.
out where you can fit in. You figured out how often you can get the data. You get it as soon as you can. You have someone upload it for you. You keep it organized by when you uploaded it, what it was that you uploaded,
Right.
and you're pretty much deep diving all of them.
Exactly.
And Yeah, that's pretty clear to me that that's why you're getting monster deals, because you're getting deals that nobody else is really trying to work.
That's
So
it.
and you're very niche, so I'm assuming your overhead's probably very low. Um,
Very low. Yeah, it's data. I mean, there's barely any data. The data costs are free because I'm getting it from the courthouse.
yep.
Then there may be a little bit of skip tracing costs, but the expensive part of the process is the time. So yes, you nailed it exactly right. I'm looking at the raw data from the county. So there's tax collector data for the tax delinquencies, and then there's the basically the courthouse data or the foreclosure files. They're called SP files for the deed of trust foreclosures. So that
Sure.
data goes directly into REISift. It has to be cleaned up, obviously, but goes into
Mhm.
REISift.
Right.
Then we basically match up to see which ones are deceased, which ones are alive. And there's multiple ways to do that. We don't have to go into that right now. And then from there, it's basically just cherry picking. So exactly like you said, I'm deep diving into every
Sure.
deal. Um, and that's the reason I'm deep diving is because they're deep dives. I know that there's more chance that less people are going after them, and so
Mhm.
they're going to be more profitable, if that makes sense. So,
Awesome.
um,
Yeah, and it's proven to be
and I
very
think it's worth.
profitable. Your spreads are
Yeah,
massive.
it's proven to be profitable. The I think it's worth noting that it is a path of most resistance. So it was something that I had a very hard time with myself where if I saw, oh, I can do more and more deals this way, or if I create a goal for myself to do more and more volume, you actually can't do it that way. You have to
Mhm.
say anytime you can see a deal that you can go through easily is not where I want to spend time. I want to spend time where I know I'm going to hit a brick wall.
Sure.
And so your brain doesn't want to go through the path of most resistance, but you almost have to do that
Right.
because you say, okay, the person's deceased. There's no working phone numbers. We don't know who the heirs are. Okay, I have to train myself to think that's where I need to spend time. That's where I
Sure.
need to gather intelligence. And then REI Sift makes it easy to document all that. Whereas if I tried to do it without REI Sift, I would get lost before I even started.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. The process is smooth. Your overhead is low. Your spreads are huge. You have total clarity of your process. And I appreciate your time, man. Obviously, we're excited to see where you go here in this upcoming year, this new year. I'm
Yeah.
sure it's going to continue with awesome wins. So we look forward to hearing more in the mastermind community. And thank you so much.